just so they can hear.
Yeah.
Not everybody here. Should I take my hearing aids out?
Why, bother you?
It's a big echo, yeah.
You can take them out. Yeah, it's like a piano thing right there.
Yeah.
Come out of the speaker.
Yeah.
Right? So she can.
Yes. But it's recorded, it's recorded. That way, people would make it funny.
Okay. Okay, Beth Ann, imagine yourself.
Hey,
No smoke.
hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you, but you can hear me.
know it's coming out of that box, right?
I just.
Okay.
Yeah. I gotta put my hearing aids in separate pockets where they buzz.
I got them in all. I forgot mine.
Wow. I mean, my home's a little. That's nice.
Hey, you dropped it, huh?
They said you're waiting.
Yeah, I'm all fired up.
I know.
Pardon me.
That's
Yeah, that's someone. Yeah.
Why don't you use the big seat? That's what we use on Sunday morning.
I'm not very often.
You've known for a long time you're not a job.
But that's right. Jenny Lee, are you ready? No. Okay.
Do I need to talk into your cheek?
No, just come on up.
Oh,
So, beautiful ride, guys. I want to tell you that there was one point where I could see, we're on a slope there, and I could see everybody. I could see the front riders. I was in the back, and it just choked me up, man. It was absolutely beautiful. I wish you all could have experienced that sight. Fortunately, I did not get it on the phone, but this is mostly to the new riders and the folks that were apprehensive about getting in a group. You guys killed it really well. I just want to commend you for facing that fear. I know it can be really daunting to take on a big group like that, but it came out really beautifully. Well done, and thanks for all the support from our seasoned riders as well. And
Give yourself a big hand. Good afternoon, everybody.
Mm.
My name's Kevin. I am an ordained minister from the Universal Life Church for the last 2 years. My grand sponsor, Tom M., passed that down to me about 15 years ago. And at that time, I had no idea I would be up here on the stage today doing my dear friend's celebration of life. And this is a celebration of life, not a memorial service. So let's smile and just give Bill the best celebration of life ever send off. So I'm going to I got a coin. Bill's spirit animal was a wolf. So
Mhm.
a wolf on one side with 18 years. I'm going to start it with Wayne and pass around. Everybody, please give it some love. And then the last person, please give it to Sarah. Okay. I want to thank Jenny Lee and Chris Blade, our rovers, for the ride today, and Johnny, they really did well. I would also like to thank Liz of Liz's Catering. Liz is not here, but her associates are here. Big round of applause. Everybody get it up. I spent a lot of time writing this out. I don't know. In Mexico on the Sea of Cortez while we were down there the last couple months, writing and rewriting, you know, and I just probably just throw all these out and just share it from the heart. But the family intro is Sarah's partner is here for the last 5 years. Trip. You here? Bill's son, he came out from Georgia. His nephew Wayne and his wife Jennifer and their son Beckham, they came from Florida. So we really have people from all over the country today celebrating Bill's life. Bill also had 2 sisters, Bonnie and Beverly. And I don't know if Bonnie is, okay, I got to know, okay, Bonnie's not in Zoom, okay. So Bill's life, as you all know, Bill was a kind and gentle soul. I mean, bar none. This guy never had a bad word to say about anybody. He was quite an individual. So William Gordy Lang was born in Augusta, Georgia, November 4th, 1954. And he left Earth on January 8th, 2026. Bill was 71 years old. Bill being born and raised in Augusta, he shared one significant story with me one day while we were sitting there. When he was 9 or 10, 11 years old, they would sneak into the golf course where all the greatest golfers in the world were playing in the Masters, and they'd sit in the bushes and watch the golfers for free. Bill was also a deep sea fisherman. After he became a successful painting contractor in Florida, he moved on to Jacksonville, became a very successful painting contractor, and took up deep sea fishing. He had several boats. I'm going to yell over to Sarah to, if she knows, remember the name of his favorite boat.
Sea Coaster.
Okay, thank you.
What was it? Sea Coaster.
Sea Coaster. That was his favorite boat. Bill won multiple fishing tournaments, deep sea fishing tournaments. He was quite a good fisherman. Quite the fisherman. As some of us in this room, life goes with some hard curves, and Bill came to Arizona to start a new chapter of his life. He was sober. Hence the name Sober Bill. We're so creative here. He did his treatment at Decision Point, graduated successfully, and also transitioned to his first job here in Arizona, being the transportation guy at Decision Point for Tony and Barry and the company. And I moved over here in 2009, and when I couldn't find a job anywhere else, I got hired at Decision Point too in housing. And as a new guy, you have to work the weekends. So one Saturday, here comes this guy in an orange and black Honda Element with an and I looked at him, and I knew just by him talking a few words, he was not from around these parts. But what I did see in the back window of the Element were Harley wings. So after he did his job, I came up to him and said, you know, the typical biker recognition. Hey man, did you ride? And that started a conversation. Bill liked to talk. So Bill spent about a half hour telling me about his new purchase of his Street Glide, his 09 Street Glide. That began our friendship. We are also home group members at the Humboldt Men's Stag for years. A lot of guys from the Men's Stag are here today. And that's, I'll tell you, that's loyalty there. Most of us go through life, if we're lucky, we have one best friend. One best friend. Bill had 6. Bill had 6, and I'm going to go through them now, one at a time. Ethan, where you at, Ethan? Raise your hand up. Ethan was the first guy Bill met when he came to Arizona. Ethan also got Bill his sobriety chip every year he stays home. Gave him 18.
I love you. I miss you, Dad.
And next was Mel. Mel and Bill were dear friends, and I'm not sure if you guys met at the motorcycle mechanic school or you knew Bill before that, Mel. I'm not sure. Okay, okay. But they also did a motorcycle mechanic school together. Jesus. JJ Enterprises. Great friends. And Jesus guided Bill in customizing his motorcycles. And I'll get into that in a minute because I asked Bill and he said, you better talk about my motorcycles, Bill. Danny from California. Danny could not make it today, but he sends his best. He was unable to attend. Myself, and then John Paul. John Paul could not make it also. But I have to give a special shout out to John Paul because John Paul went with Bill as his wingman to his last long ride at the Sunrise Serenity Run. Rode there and back with him, made sure he was safe. So special shout out to John Paul. A lot of us went to the Sunrise Serenity Run for years. And Nancy couldn't make it today. I didn't see that. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about Bill's bikes. Bill's bikes. I'll start out with the big wheel, which was a 9 wide. And I was working for Bill at Carlton, and he said, "Hey man, can you follow me to work? Follow me to the shop. I'm gonna get a new wheel on my bike." And I'm thinking, well, why? It's like brand new. But that's my thought process. So he put the big wheel and front end on the bike. And it's like, he said, "Kev, I don't know if I'm doing this. I don't know. He was really iffy. But that was the beginning of one beautiful machine, which Wayne is riding today. I mean, he customized it from the front wheel to the rear wheel and everything in between. It's a beautiful, beautiful machine. And he did it kind of before that the big wheel thing was like in vogue. You know, he was taking a chance converting his bike because it really hadn't taken off yet. Bill's Road King. I've been given the honor by Sarah to ride his Road King today. It was truly an honor. Sarah's also honored me riding the Road King until my riding days are over. At that time, it will be returned to Sarah and she can ride away in sunset. I'm very honored with that truly an honorable thing. The Road King is incredible. I've ridden it a couple times now, and of course, Bill never spared any expense on his custom parts. Some of you can relate to that. I can't. I'm in a garage with a hammer and chisel trying to make this and make that. And Bill said, "No, I just did that." Oh, dang it, Bill. There was no keeping up with Bill in his custom work. He was one of a kind. I've been riding bikes for a long time, working on bikes a long time, and there was no one who could customize a bike like Bill. Nobody, bar none. And then I want to take some time to talk about the track. That was Bill's last project. I was with Bill and Sarah when they found it at Mayor Harley and purchased it. And believe me, I'm not a trike guy, but I took one look at that trike and I said, "Man, that's a cool trike. That is a cool trike." So Bill, one piece at a time, it had the pointy handlebars. I don't know exactly what they're called, but so his theme with that bike, everything was pointy. From the axle covers to the footboards, everything he did to that bike was in the pointy theme. And I knew last fall his health was failing. And he wanted to buy an air cleaner. So I said, "Hey man, I'll buy what can I do to help out?" And he said, "Well, I got these rims for sale that fit your street light. I said, okay, cool. I'll buy them. So he was able to buy the air cleaner, and the last thing he did to the motorcycle, which is incredible, the heart he had was to put the clutch assist on it. And he told me he was gonna do that. I know he wasn't feeling it. I said, Bill, I'll come over and help you. He said, no, I got it. I wanna make sure it's all set up for Sarah to ride. And he did. Incredible. That was a final labor of love for Sarah. You guys take a look at his bikes out there after we're done here. Go take a look at them. I mean, it's all Bill. I'm gonna share this and then I'm gonna pass it to Trip. When Bill called me and said, hey, I've been diagnosed with cancer. Holy crap. I was diagnosed in 2018. So I knew what he was gonna have to go through. So I talked to God and I said, God, what can I do to be the best friend I can be to my friend? He said, call him every day, ride with him, hang out with him, make sure you make contact with every day. And if you guys have ever called sober Bill on the phone, it's not a 5-minute phone call. Holy crap, minimum 20 minutes. Lois would say, you still on the phone with Bill? Yes, I am, honey. I did my very best to call him, to ride with him, to hang out with him every freaking day. I had no idea he was gonna go as quick as he would, as he did. I had no idea. We had him over for Christmas. And I knew he was hurting, but I didn't know he was hurting that bad. I did my very best to be the best friend I could for Bill. But I know a lot of you guys here today want to say some words about Bill. And the podium is not that intimidating. Looking at you guys is the intimidating part. So I'm going to turn it over to Trip right now, and then when you guys are done, then I'll come and finish the ceremony, the celebration of life. Bill's son, Trip.
Thanks for having me.
Give it up for Kevin. Yeah. First and foremost, I want to thank God, because without God, none of us are sitting in here. You know, God has saved my life. I look at these walls and I see where God has saved most of your lives. You know, some people know him as Big Will Bill. Somebody know him as Sober Bill. Some people know him as Sarah's boyfriend Bill. I got the unbelievable pleasure to call him Dad. And my dad was one of the most caring people and one of the most energetic people you will ever meet. And because of that, he's instilled some great things in my life. And I would just like to share a few things about my life growing up with my dad. When I grew up with my dad, he was in the Sea Coaster. He was a fisherman. He did not ride motorcycles, and that was not who he was. You know, my dad made some really great decisions in his life, and he made some really bad decisions in his life. The best decision he ever made in his life was to come out to Arizona and to get sober. He got sober because of all you people sitting out there, not because of me, not because of Sarah, but because of all you guys supporting him and loving him and lifting him up. And I want to tell all you guys thank you. Because without you guys, we wouldn't even have been to this point, because he would have died before he came out here. He came out here because he had some serious health problems due to his drinking. And he couldn't do it alone, and he couldn't do it there. So he came here, he got involved in the program, he came to these meetings, and you people poured your love into him and loved on him, taught him what he needed to do, and it taught him how to love himself. And once he began to love himself, he began to spread his love to everybody else. And what I want to say, if anything, is I just want to give gratitude to you guys for doing that for my dad. And I want to thank, most of all, I want to thank Sarah. Sarah came into his life and he was doing good. When Sarah came into his life, he began to do great. And the last years, the few years of his life that he was with Sarah, he became more of a dad. He became more of the father that I needed, and he became more of the person that he is when he left this earth. And again, I want to thank Sarah. I want to thank all of you guys. And if you will allow, I would like to pray for us. If you don't pray, if you could just humor me in this. God, I come to you today just so incredibly grateful for these people here, so incredibly grateful for Sarah, so incredibly grateful for the 12 steps that got him sober and got him the extra 18 years of his life, allowed him to be the father that he was. God, I'm just so grateful that you gave us the opportunity to spend the time with him, and that you gave us the opportunity to see him as his true self, as not the drunk, as not the wild man, but as the man, Bill Lang, and as the man, my father. And I just want to give you the thanks, Lord, and just ask you to bless all of these people here, and just know that you're in our heart. It's in your name we pray, amen. Amen. Thank you guys for coming.
Willie.
I was, my name's Willie. I knew, Big Wheel Bill. Met him at the, whole meeting and, you know, him and I always talked about the South. Family in Myrtle Beach, always go to NASCAR races in Charlotte. And, you know, I always enjoy his accent, you know, his southern accent. I thought it was really cool. And we would always talk about the South. And, you know, about motorcycles with Bill, the most admirable thing, the guy had the cleanest friggin' motorcycles. I used to look at his bikes and say, oh, I could never have a bike that clean. You know, really, man. I mean, when we went riding up to Saliman, and I was looking at his bike and I was like, man, you could eat off that thing. It looked like it came off the showroom. And my bike is never that clean. It's always grimy and got some wear and tear on it. But Bill was a really good guy. I really appreciated his friendship. And with that, I'll just
Beth Ann, are you ready to say something?
Sure. Can you hear me?
They can hear you, Beth Ann. I'm going to put you up here.
All right. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. It's good to see all of you. Trip, Kevin, Ethan, wherever Ethan is, he's always hiding. Mel. Anyway, I tried to come last night after work, and my flight from Charleston to Charlotte was delayed 2 hours, so I was going to miss the connection, which was getting me to Phoenix this morning. So I didn't know if this would work, and Mel agreed to be my backup, which is appropriate because Mel introduced Bill and I. Anyway, let's see if I can do this. Bill and I both arrived in Prescott the same day. We were both sent to this small mountain town in Arizona, a town known for recovery, where people went to rebuild their lives. And Bill found sobriety immediately there and held on to it, and I struggled. We knew a lot of the same people, you know, our circles sort of overlapped. And then 16 years ago, April 2010, I relapsed, and Mel was exceedingly worried about me. And a bunch of sober riders were going on a ride, and Mel convinced Bill to call me and invite me. So Bill called. Now, I want you to understand something important about that phone call. The woman who answered the phone was not charming, not pleasant, and in fact, I was very nasty. Bill invited me on the ride. I told him all the reasons it was a terrible idea. I told him I didn't ride on the back of a motorcycle. I wasn't some person's charity case, and besides, my riding gear was packed away and my motorcycle was in New Jersey. Bill, in that steady and calm voice many of you probably remember well, simply said, "Well, think it over, I'll call you back." And Bill called me back. And I was still difficult. Bill didn't get angry. He didn't lecture me. He just stayed calm and said he'd call back again. I imagine after hanging up, he probably called his sponsor and said something like, "I get this service thing, but this lady's abusing the privilege." Meanwhile, I sat there staring at my phone, rehearsing all the unpleasant things I was going to say if he chose to call me back. And then he did, unbelievably. He called back a third time. And to this day, I don't know what happened in that moment. But when I picked up the phone and he asked me if I was ready, I said yes. Mel came and picked me up to make sure I was safe. And we met up with a group of 20 sober riders. And we went down to Wickenburg, Cold Creek, up through Oak Creek Canyon, a beautiful ride through northern Arizona. But when Mel dropped me off next to Bill to start the ride, he started his bike, his beautiful 2009 Blue Street Glide. I climbed on the back, and then he turned on the music. It was country. And I screamed, "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, what are you going to make me listen to? Haven't you heard of the Grateful Dead? I'm in purgatory. I can't listen to this all day." Bill turned his head so slightly so I could hear him over that engine. And in that soft, slow drawl, he said, "Well, it's my bike." And off we rode. Something about that day, the ride, the wind, Bill's quiet patience, sober riders, happy, joyous, and free. Enjoying a glorious spring day. Gifted me with a direct hit of grace. We call it that moment of clarity, and I felt free, unburdened, and hopeful for the first time in years. The nasty attitude I had started out that day with disappeared and started to soften. And by the time Bill dropped me off at my house, walked me to my door, and said goodbye, I was able to respectfully say thank you and mean it. That ride saved my life. And Bill, whether he realized it or not, was part of that miracle. Bill practiced something that sits the heart of our recovery, being of service to another alcoholic. But he didn't do it with speeches or pressure. He did it with patience, with kindness, with quiet persistence, and apparently country music. That ride was 16 years ago. I carried the gift of that day and the examples of Bill's steady, generous spirit with me every day. Bill showed up, he reached out, he called back, and sometimes that's all it takes to save a life. Thank you, Bill. I used to tell Bill's mom what a wonderful job she did raising her Billy. She was proud of her son and loved spending time with him out in Prescott, and I got to spend time with her too. I could stand here all afternoon telling stories about Bill. There are so many, but if I did, we'd be here till tomorrow morning. And Bill would probably tell me to wrap it up because he liked to do the telling. When I think of our friendship, I immediately think of the passage from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that describes the fellowship we find here in recovery. We are people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We're like passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go on our individual ways. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina in November of 2017. Bill was the first person to visit me in my new home just a few weeks later at Christmas. I think he was genuinely concerned that this New York Yankee might have trouble fitting in down here in the Low Country. On that trip, Bill introduced me to some essential parts of Southern culture. He took me to my first Waffle House, my first Chick-fil-A, educated me in all things related to oysters, took me to my first meeting, what has since become my home group. He also insisted that I pick a football team. Apparently, there's valuable social currency gained when rooting for Clemson or USC during football season. Who knew? When Bill met Sarah, I was so happy for him. Watching their love grow and flourish was something I would wish for everyone. Sarah's a beautiful soul, and I wanted nothing but the best for my friend Bill. Together, Sarah and Bill squeezed a century's worth of love and living into 5 short years. Bill and I also lived with cancer. I received my diagnosis in 2014, and Bill's heart was heavy as he watched the effects of my treatment. Years later, when Bill received his diagnosis, my heart hurt just as much for him. Last year, when I underwent treatment for a recurrence, Bill knew what happened just by looking at me. Alcoholism is fatal. Bill and I both knew that, which means that in many ways, Bill and I were living our bonus rounds. The bonus rounds are the time we were never promised, the years that come after the storm, the miles we get to travel that once seemed impossible. In the bonus rounds, we get to wake up above ground every day. We get to make amends. We get to watch our grandchildren grow. We get to fall in love. And we get to help the next struggling soul find their way. Bill lived those bonus rounds fully. He loved his family fiercely. He rode his motorcycle thousands of miles over this great country. He found Sarah and built a beautiful life with her. And he quietly practiced the simple action that saves lives in recovery. He showed up for other people. Sometimes showing up looks like a phone call. Sometimes it looks like patience. And sometimes it looks like calling someone back one more time when they're being very difficult. Bill's bonus rounds made the world a better place for a lot of people, mine included. And for that, my dear friend, I will always be grateful. Thank you, Bill, for the first ride, for the love and friendship that followed and the miles we rode together, and for showing me and so many others how to live fully and love fiercely in this unexpected gift of time. I know I'll see you again somewhere further down the road. Please just call me back. I love you. Thank you.
Papa. Thanks.
Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that.
All right, Mel.
Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks, Mel.
I don't really know where to start. I know that Willie mentioned something about clean bikes. I cleaned the windshield on mine today in Bill's honor. I heard a few people talking about that he does like to talk. I can't recall how many times I had to say, Bill, wait, Bill, wait, Bill, breath. And, it got to be kind of a joke, but, and on that bike out there, I remember we took a ride, I don't remember where, we took so many rides, but he made me stop. When it hit 50,000 miles, I had to take a picture of it. Just as it rolled over. And that was a pretty cool trip. I don't remember much more about that trip except taking a picture of the speedometer. I had in December, this past December, I lost the last of 3 great friends. There was 4 of us, well, 5 of us. And the last one passed in December. I figured out, and Bill was going through his stuff, his cancer treatments. And I said, well, this sucks. Because losing those friends of mine, the last one in December, I figured I was done for a while. But obviously I wasn't. So Bill and I had a lot of good times. I was a little pissed off at him though, because I can't tell you how many rides, how many years, we went to the Sunrise Serenity Run, and we'd spend time talking about all these women we were gonna have. And falling in love. And talk. And talk. And talk. And he found his, pissed me off. I said, what the hell's going on? I was pretty happy for him. I still am. And Sarah, I got to meet Sarah, and yesterday I met Sarah's dog. He wanted to say hi, so anyway, so I covered up all the blood. I could probably talk several stories, but I just did a data dump. And I'm at a point in my life, I don't feel real comfortable around a lot of people anymore. And I apologize, especially to Greg, for being kind of quiet. And I can't explain why. But riding today, Jesus, now that's something else. I could ride with 2, I could ride with 100, wouldn't bother me a bit. And I bowl 4 times a week, that don't bother me much. And I've talked to Bill about this several times. He said, well, just, shine it on. Shut that fuck up, Bill. So I do miss him. And it's been quite a last few weeks have been pretty bad. Lost Bill, lost my son, lost a lot of things this last couple of weeks. It's not been a good time. I wish I could sit up here and make all kinds of jokes. If I was speaking at an AA meeting, I'd probably have you all laughing, right? And oh, by the way, for those from Embry-Riddle, welcome. I hope this place don't scare you too bad. You hear a lot of bad stories about this. I don't know about this, but about us. And try to make it as good as we can. But thank you for coming. There's a few people in here. I made up some patches that some of us bikers put on their jackets, and one of them says "In memory of Bill." And I owe at least 5 of you a real sincere apology because I didn't have enough patches made. I got that taken care of with a phone call, so I should have them within the next few days.
Oh,
Anyway, I just want to say thanks, and Sarah, you know, we love you, you got your support. See if I can make it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, whoa, that was grand entrance. Can you guys hear me in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Karen Hager. My father was Ronald Swenson. My mom Jackie is here with me as well, so that's how I knew Bill. I just wanted to share one short story with you. Not sure if your dad ever told you this, but our daughter Tasha, who's also here, who wouldn't come up with me, she got married during COVID in our backyard. And I asked Bill, since my dad was not here to be there, if he would come down. And we couldn't tell my mom because she would have like blown the secret. So we had my daughter Tasha and her to-be husband Levi were holding hands, and Bill walks in, and we got it all on video. We got photos as well. And he walks in and hugs her, and she just cried because Bill is also my dad. Like, they were really good friends with a lot of you and before Sarah. So I just wanted to share that with you, just to kind of attest to the type of man that he was, that we really appreciated that. I apologize to my daughter because she started crying and we hadn't finished her photos, and then we forgot to get photos of her and her husband, but you know, it was still a very touching moment. And thank you all for being his friend, and for Sarah for loving him. Because I know after my dad died, it was hard on Bill and a lot of you that knew him. And so thank you for being there for him. Thank you guys.
I'm Lisa. Trust me, I don't need the microphone. Lisa, yes, come up here. Oh, okay. So, I knew Bill through Sarah. And I didn't know him as Silver Bill or Big Wheel Bill. I knew him as Bill. And I actually met Bill before Sarah met Bill. I was showing up at the same party that Sarah had invited Bill to. And I met him as we were walking into the garage. And he's like, hey, you know, I'm here to meet this, woman I'm chatting with. And I'm like, okay, And we walked in together. And I just knew from the minute he walked in that he was going to do great things for my friend Sarah. I don't know, but like I'm not gonna spill your tea, but she hasn't had great luck with the men. And trust me, I've been there for some of them. And I was so grateful. So incredibly grateful that Bill came into her life. He loved to ride his motorcycles, and Sarah loves anything fast. She's calmed down a little bit in the last couple of years.
My old age.
Yeah, well, we won't go there. You calm down. But if it goes fast and it does crazy things, Sarah's all about it. And I'm so happy she found some. I don't know this Bill that everybody talks about talking, because when I came to visit them, because I live in Phoenix, so I've made the trip up the hill, as you guys call it. I didn't get the Bill never talks. So this whole Bill that everybody talks about, I'm like, I didn't see that. I didn't know that Bill. But I usually came up with my train wreck of a life, my story. So I'm sure that was probably why I didn't get that Bill, because he listened to me and he let me chat and he let us have girl talk. And then he sent me on his way. And I went home, you know, and I got the call, let us know you got home. But I didn't know him as long as you did, but I did see the marvelous human being that everybody talks about. And I'm so grateful that he came to Prescott. And so grateful he met you, all of you. You all had a hand in turning Bill into the marvelous human being I got to meet 5 years ago. And he became the person my friend Sarah needed. And I'm so very grateful. And I told Sarah this multiple times. He is so incredibly proud of you for carrying on and for getting on that motorcycle through your tears, through your I can't do this, I miss him, to get on the motorcycle and you rode. And he is so incredibly great. He is so incredibly proud of you. He's looking down, he's smiling, and he wants everybody to carry on. I'm sure he would have loved the motorcycle ride this afternoon, or this. Not a motorcycle rider. I was the one in the very back riding in my car, but let me tell you, I rolled down my moonroof, so I got a little bit of the wind therapy. I may have to go learn how to ride a motorcycle now, but just saying. But I just want to come in here and share that I didn't know him as long as most people in this room, but I did see that he was an incredible human being, and he will be missed.
Didn't know Bill for his words either. First time I met him, we were riding up the San Francisco Peaks to the lot. Johnny was there. You introduced me to Bill, actually. And Bill and I got stuck in this weird angle, gravel on the road, and it was just odd. And tried to get turned around and the bike fell over. And kind of threw him on the ground. And I remember, didn't it go down twice? Didn't it fall twice that day? And I couldn't do anything because I was in the same predicament. I was standing on pea-sized pebbles and watching this whole thing go down. And after the second one, got up and he looked at me. And I was like, I was worried about his ego, right? We don't have a shame attack out here. This is fine. It happens. Bad situation. And he was just, no words, just the eye contact. I'm okay. I'm good. And we went to dinner, and I ended up sitting next to him, and he was so cute. Again, not a single word. And I noticed that he tore up his elbow, and I just kind of gestured towards it. It was so cute. He just reached over, patted my hand, gave me this little grin, said a word to him. I knew he was okay. I knew that the embarrassment was not there. And I thought, and that dude's soul is calm. That's pretty amazing. It was right before he met Sarah. So I didn't know well, but I got to watch this love live by way of Facebook. Go figure. But I just got it in my head. Every time I see an airplane fly over my house, there go Bill and Sarah. Just seeing the smile that came from the quiet guy on that ride. I think we were the two single people of that trip, to the smile that he had when he met you and there forward. Very enriching and very hopeful. I'm glad that you guys got to share that together. And you as well.
Hello.
And
Hey there.
hi, Ethan.
Hello. All right, so my name's Ethan. It's an honor to be here. Lots of stories, not enough words. As a couple people may know, I was working at Decision Point doing overnights. I was working the night Bill got here. I'm not the first person he met, and the second. First one, guy named Scott Stouts, was working at Decision Point. He brought him up from the airport, dropped him off at housing. That's where I was. So Bill showed up here in shorts, deck boots, and a white fishing shirt. And he just looked scared. And I could relate to that. So I had the same experience in Prescott, where somebody picked me up a couple hundred miles and dropped me off at a treatment center. And I thought my life was over. And I think, looking back on it, my guess is Bill was thinking the same thing. And for a lot of us, I'm sure, whether or not we're in 12-step stuff, there's been times, I would guess, where we thought, even for a brief moment, that this shit is over with. And how do I press on? What I saw, watched from the front row with Bill, was somebody that was from the start willing to do whatever it took, not his way. And some of you might relate to that. And he did it well. I remember being in a meeting when I was very new with this, and somebody saying acceptance doesn't mean approval. And it took a little bit for me to really, really understand that. But for my experience, especially with Bill, I watched him practice that and live it over and over again. And it's an honor to be a part of it. I have, as everybody here does, enough stories to fill 2 books. And maybe a different time, but what I really know about him is that he genuinely cared. And I've seen a lot of people in my time in this community, which welcomed me and, as Nathan said, loved me into a better spot. Sometimes against my wishes. I got to learn to be okay, and that was enough. So, watching him do that too, pretty special. he followed suggestions. People talk about service. I watched him go from showing up in the beginning, the first meeting that Bill went to in Prescott, I drove him to. I drove him to buy all those bikes out there. For a lot of this stuff, my perspective again is front seat. And at every bullet point junction, there was just this underlying kindness and an acceptance of maybe it's okay if things are okay, and that was enough. So, too many stories, too much to remember all at once. It's an honor, We used to exchange chips. My birthday's the day before his, so one story I'll pass along. Early on, when Bill was new here, I didn't know him as anything other than Bill L, because he was a client. I had to write notes on him. So early on, when he was still in treatment, a story came out where, before maybe even your guys' time, his friend Bobby and him, according to Bill, used to go somewhere, wherever they were living at, if it was Florida or Daytona, and they used to ride bikes and cars or whatever, and they would go by AA clubs and they would point fun at those guys and say, thank God we're not doing that. And I remember clearly him saying he felt bad about that. He at some point was going to make an amends, and whether or not he actually did that, I don't know, but he wanted to help everybody. He did his level best. And it's hard sometimes for me, anyway, to not take things personally when somebody falls or however it goes. But the getting back up part, that's a big deal for those of us who have looked around and said, how did this happen? How did I get here? And now what? More than anything at all, got to watch him practice consistent accountability, humility, and a whole lot of acceptance, even at the end. And I'm grateful, painful as it is, that you were there to help with that, because it made a difference, big difference. So, love you all. Thank you.
My name's Grayson Gordy.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
Hello, Beth Ann. It's lovely to see you again.
Good to see you.
I have the privilege of being Silver Bill's roommate with me. Early 2010 to about early 2011. And I got to know Bill quite well in that time. Not because we had a deep heart-to-heart philosophical conversation, but because I could hear every word he was saying when he was on the telephone in the other room. I love you, Bill. I gotta tell you, there's a few words that you could use to describe Bill, but there's not enough of them. Words like integrity, loyalty, friend, honor, strength, character, and on and on. All day long, a few words have been rolling through my head and emerging from my heart. So I put them down and I figured I'd share them with you today. For those of you who don't know, I've been a musician for 30 years. Once in a while I do write new lyrics. Today I was impressed to do the same. It's called a hell of a ride. Bill arrived at the pearly gates. St. Peter, his fate to decide, says to Bill, I have only one task. Describe your life in 12 words or less. Is all the Almighty asks. Bill fell silent, knowing brevity was not his friend. Bill asked St. Peter, can I answer a different question? Your words, your life in 12 words or less, St. Peter said. His face slightly grinned. Bill's silence grew so thick you could cut it with a knife. Bill mumbled beneath his breath, 12 words or less to describe my entire life. A line was growing of 1,000 souls forming at the pearly gates behind Bill. One impatient soul yelled, although we're here for eternity, get on with it, man. We don't have all day to kill. Bill hesitated, drew a breath, then sighed. St. Peter smiled. 12 words are left for my whole life to describe. St. Peter nodded his head. Bill spoke up and drew a breath. And this is what he said. I lived. I loved. I rode. It's been a hell of a ride. St. Peter raised an eyebrow, disapproving of Bill's use of profanity. Just then the Almighty appeared on a thunderous chariot, and in a Bill said, did you expect anything else from a man who rides a Harley? Bill impulsively exclaimed. The Almighty laughed. Just as the second chariot appeared, the Almighty said, you rode a Harley, what was your favorite bike? Bill said, yes, sir, I rode a street glide. Later, I rode a trike. The Almighty grinned and repeated, a street glide and a trike will hop on your new chariot. It's a ride I think you'll like. As Bill saddled up and kick-started his new illustrious ride, the Almighty said to Bill, I know you've toured the Rockies and the California coast. We're going to spend eternity cruising the universe. And they throttled up. Before they sped away, the Almighty spoke up and said, I've got one last thing to say. Hey, Pete, if anybody asks, where in the world can Bill be? You look him in the eye and you tell him that Bill was riding with me. For those of us who mourn, for those of us who cried, Bill is looking down on us and saying, put your grief aside. I've lived. I've laughed. I've rode. Most importantly, before this world, I was loved. It's been one hell of a little.
Hey, Teresa.
And, I have,
Hello.
two things came to my mind, but you could sharing it. The early on meeting, a lot of us went to, I remember when, Bill's mother showed up at that meeting.
And at the end of the meeting, when I talked to him, and he said, well, that's the woman who saved my life. That's why I'm here. And first time I met Sarah was really brief. And so he vaguely introduced me to her when we were talking, and when I was leaving, he said the same thing about Sarah. He said, I'm here because of her, just like you said to his mom. So I'm just gonna quote one thing from our book, or from the literature that has been a mainstay for me, especially when I lost a loved one. He'll be here next week. So Bill Wilson says, believe more deeply, hold your face to the light, even if you cannot see.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to share a few words about Bill? I want to cut it short. Okay. Sarah, if you could come up on stage, I have something for you. Everybody's giving it a bunch of love. So before we conclude, where's Ethan? Ethan, there he is. Yeah. I have two quick stories to share about Bill. And Ethan will get a kick out of the first one. There's the $400 shoe and the Russian. So the $400 shoe was when Bill went to Decision Point from Florida. He put 4 $100 bills in his sock. So he would have plane flight to go back to Florida if he didn't fit in. And he carried that $400 in his shoe for 3-4 months. They never found him. And the Russian. So when I moved over here from Cottonwood, I was looking for a place to get a haircut. And he goes, and Bill said, because I always looked at Bill and he was always immaculately dressed, groomed. I mean, I was jealous of how clean cut this guy was. And he said, I said, where do you get your haircut, man? He goes, well, go to the Russian. Okay. So he told me where the Russian was on Honor Springs. Went for years. And when I go for a haircut, I'd say, Bill, I'm going to see the Russian. When he'd go, Kevin, I'm going to see the Russian. So I'm sitting in a chair one day right before Christmas with the Russian cutting my hair. And she said, well, I'm going back to my country to see relatives. I said, oh, wow. What part of Russia are you from? She said, I'm not Russian. I'm Bulgarian. So I went back to housing and said, hey, Bill, she's not Russian, she's Bulgarian. It didn't even matter. So I included, so now I'm going to get my haircut from the Russian who's not Russian. That happened for years. Then Iskra's son went to work and he needed business. So Bill kept going to Iskra, but I went over to her son Isaac. So when I would go get a haircut, Bill, I'm going to see the son of the Russian who's not Russian. We get my, I didn't miss anything for anybody. There's some people I'd like to thank today. Dave, Deb, and Kathy and Tony T. And helping set up the link. I really appreciate your help. Hugh Holly. I was in Mexico trying to put this together, and Hugh was instrumental through Greg to help us get this facility. Made the work much easier. John Paul contributed $100 towards the event, and Daniel contributed $100 towards the event. You know, it takes a village. We got a strong crew here of people that help put this thing together. But I forget you, Deb. Did I mention you, Deb? You'll get me in Mexico if I don't. And I think Bill would be proud of the celebration of life, and especially the motorcycle ride that we did today. It was awesome. I mean, you guys really hit it out of the park. You know, and I'll tell you one thing, and on a personal note, I found it very difficult to do the speed limit. Anything else? Is it just me? No. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you all. Most of all, Sarah. Gave Bill the best 5 years. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, one thing before you erase Beth Ann. Beth Ann, I wanted to thank you because everything I missed, you filled in those gaps because nobody writes as eloquently as you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Beth Ann.
Ben.
Thank you, Beth Ann. Love you, girl.
Love you too.
I'm gonna close the Zoom.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Dangerous, wrong.